Coberg, Germany, a small town in northern Bavaria, a gathering place for the royalty of Europe. Home to the house of Saxe, Coberg and Gotha, ruled by a duke, Ernst I, whose son, Prince Albert, would become the grandfather of European royalty. His wife, Queen Victoria, ruled the British Empire. He even introduced the Christmas tree to England and a magic blue ornament. It's Coberg, April 1894. Queen Victoria hosts a gathering of Europe's leading aristocrats. The occasion, the wedding of her granddaughter, Victoria Melita, to a German Grand Duke. Among the attendees, Victoria's grandson, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and Nicholas, and Victoria's granddaughter, Alexandra. Not only their children, but much of Europe also has the Coberg connection, such as Wilhelm II's mother, Vicky. Her daughter, Sophia, was the Queen of Greece. Even Charlotte, the Empress of Mexico, was a Saxe Coberger, and so was Ferdinand, the Tsar of Bulgaria, and Manuel II, the King of Portugal, and Marie, the Queen of Romania, and Sibylla, the Princess of Sweden, and Marie José, the Queen Consort of Italy, and Josephine Charlotte, the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg.
At the end of the 19th century, Crown Prince of Wales Edward Albert, later Edward VII, along with the British Empire generally, realized that the empire was finished, unless it stopped President Abraham Lincoln's and Alexander Hamilton's American system of political economy from spreading around the world. Edward regrouped and decided that another war directly against the United States would imminently fail. Instead, he moved vigorously to ignite a world war. When German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck discovered Edward's intent, he moved quickly to establish an alliance with Austria and Russia, knowing that the British would manipulate the German Kaiser and the Russian Tsar, both nephews of Edward. This would be another war modeled on the 7 Years' War, a war of complete and utter chaos, and when Chancellor Bismarck was kicked out of office in 1890, that is exactly what was unleashed. In 1913, 1 year before the outbreak of World War I, a curious number of prominent literary figures based in Britain published a series of forecasts in public news outlets on the outcome of the ongoing events before the war. These forecasts continued during the war and after. Some of the predictions projected that Germany would invade France by way of Belgium, that Germany would go on to repudiate the Hohenzollerns, and most of all, they forecast that Germany would lose the war altogether. All of these predictions came true. But the accuracy of these projections came more as a product of intent rather than objective scientific merit. For example, H.G. Wells was such a literary figure employed as the head of propaganda against Germany by Lord Northcliffe of the British Foreign Office. Before the war, there was no question about Wells's allegiance to the empire. He was an outspoken opponent of Bismarck's Germany and called for the destruction of the German Empire. During the war, Wells toured the Italian, French, and German fronts, gathering much needed on-the-ground intelligence that would be later used as material for his so-called forecasts. His articles appeared not only in the British press, but also American publications like the New York Times and the Boston Globe. But most importantly, everything Wells and his cohorts forecasts was already set in motion by Edward VII and others. These forecasts were actually nothing more than orchestrated psychological warfare operations launched on the population to facilitate the chaos that subsequently ensued. These were not objective predictions.
From Europe's royal family, Queen Victoria of Hesse's daughter, Princess Alice of Battenberg, married Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark. And in the fashion of the time, they produced offspring, 4 girls and 1 boy, the youngest of them all. Their girls were wed by the Council of Mephistopheles to 4 aristocratic gentlemen in Germany. In 1933, the 12-year-old Philip was sent on the advice of his sister Theodora to a wing of the Salem School in South Germany, founded by her husband's father, Prince Max von Baden, and his advisor, a little man named Han, who aided in the signing of a treaty that was very profitable for Great Britain. Shortly after the prince started attending, the Salem School was put in charge of training the Hitler Youth and the Nazi Party, and young Philip there continued his education, where he could learn history, philosophy, and race science. The royal house exceeded Mephistopheles' expectations during the early 1930s, as 3 of Queen Victoria's granddaughters married men who by 1933 were leading officials in the Nazi Party, and those officials' regal wives acted naturally as channels to Nazi appeasers in government in Great Britain. Then there was George V's successor, Edward VIII, who after declaring support for fascism in Britain and abroad, had to turn down the throne because of his controversial political patronage, even though he had the support of Winston Churchill. And so the marriages continued. In the Netherlands House of Orange, Sophie wed Prince Christoph of Hesse, and her brother-in-law Philip of Hesse wed the daughter of the King of Italy to become the official liaison between the Nazi and Italian fascist regimes. Queen Wilhelmina and her husband Hendrik of Mecklenburg financed Adolf Hitler as he came to power, on the condition that Royal Dutch Shell would take back the oil fields in Baku once the Nazis invaded Russia. To further strengthen the bond, their daughter married an SS man, a recruit to the Nazi intelligence services, Prince Bernhard, who on the occasion of their marriage signed his letter of resignation from the SS, Heil Hitler. The Bank of England, which had proven useful to the monarchy since William of Orange, had a governor, Montague Norman, who established the Bank of International Settlements as a private safe haven for Nazi finances. In the United States, Norman merged his family-owned Brown Brothers Bank with the American firm W.A. Harriman & Company Bank, almost a decade after Wall Street's Averell Harriman had been funding Adolf Hitler with German industrialist Fritz Thyssen. And when Hitler and the Nazi Party were defeated in the 1932 election, Brown Brothers Harriman, the merger of Norman's family bank with Harriman's, uttered a check to bail out the bankrupt and defeated party.